Most people throw away their survival gear every single day. It's sitting in your recycling bin right now. It's in that dumpster behind the gas station. It's in the pile of junk you were about to haul to the curb. Trash becomes fire. Trash becomes heat. Trash becomes the difference between eating tonight and not. You need to know this. Every single piece of garbage we're about to cover is real, tested, proven, used by people in actual collapse scenarios. Not prepper fantasy, not YouTube theory. Real people. Real cold, real hunger. Most people last 3 days in a cold weather emergency before exposure becomes life-threatening. The ones who don't know this content won't make it past night 2. Let's burn some trash. Start with the most obvious one. The tin can. You've thrown away thousands of them. Soup cans, bean cans, coffee cans. Every single one was a stove you didn't build. A standard soup can become a functional wood burner in under 10 minutes. Cut a hole near the bottom on one side. That's your fuel door. Cut a hole at the top on the opposite side. That's your exhaust draft. Feed sticks in the bottom. Light it. The physics do the rest. Hot gas rises, cold air gets pulled in through the bottom. You get a focused, efficient burn. Surprisingly hot, surprisingly controlled. A small pot of water boils faster than you'd expect. Now scale it up, because this is where it gets real. 3 coffee cans, different sizes, nested together with dry sand or wood ash packed between them as insulation. That insulated riser is what creates the draft. That's what makes it a true rocket stove. Tin snips make it easy. Your bare hands and a rock make it possible. One thing to know, rocket stoves are fast and intense. You're feeding finger-sized sticks every 10 to 15 minutes. High heat, constant attention. Not a set-it-and-forget-it fire. A precision burn tool. Stack 2 Nepper 10 cans. The big restaurant-sized ones. Punch draft holes at the base. Add a grate made from twisted wire. That's a camp stove that'll handle a cast iron pan. You've been composting that hardware for years. Stop it. You might think the soup can is as small as these stoves get, but actually, the most efficient one here fits in your pocket. Here's why. The aluminum beverage can cut the bottom off one can, cut the top off another, nest them. Punch jets around the top ring, fill the inner chamber with denatured alcohol or 90% isopropyl, light it. Blue flame, completely invisible in daylight, hot enough to boil water in 8 minutes. Burns so clean there's almost no smoke. That's the Pepsi stove, the penny stove, the ultralight hiker's secret weapon. It weighs nothing, it costs nothing. It's been in the garbage this whole time, but here's what nobody tells you. This stove is fuel specific. It needs high concentration alcohol, 90% or above, denatured alcohol, high-proof methanol, pure ethanol, not hand sanitizer gel. The polymer thickeners clog the jets and won't vaporize. Not perfume, it produces thick toxic soot. Not 80-proof liquor. The water content is too high to ignite. Know your fuel. The stove only works with the right one. A can stove is fast and portable, but what if you need sustained output, not just a quick boil? That changes everything. And it starts with the one container people walk past every single day. The steel paint can. Empty paint cans are everywhere after a collapse. Hardware stores, abandoned houses, construction sites, people don't think about them. That's your advantage. A paint can become a wood gas stove. This is next level. Pack the can with dry wood chunks. Tight, no air gaps, put the lid on loosely, build a small fire underneath or around the outside. The wood inside can't fully combust, not enough oxygen. Instead, it releases wood gas, combustible vapor. That vapor comes out through the gap in the lid. It ignites. You get a clean, hot secondary burn on top. This is called pyrolysis. This is how charcoal is made. You just accidentally invented a gasifier. The leftover material in the can, that's biochar. Use it to filter water. Use it to improve soil. Use it to extend your next fire. Nothing wasted. Not one single thing. You might think every fire tool here needs a direct flame, but actually the most underrated heat tool here runs on candles. And it's been sitting cracked in someone's backyard for years, the clay flower pot. Not trash exactly, but treated like it. Left behind, cracked forgotten. 2 clay pots and a handful of bolts. That's a thermal mass personal warmer. A few tea light candles underneath the clay absorbs and radiates heat back slowly. Understand what this is and what it isn't. Each tea light produces about 30 watts. This isn't heating a room, it's heating your hands, your face, the 6 inches in front of you. In a vehicle, a tent, or a sleeping bag enclosure, that's enough to matter. The clay absorbs heat, releases it slowly, like a battery made of dirt. In a world without electricity, in a world without gas lines, when it's January and you need to keep your fingers working. That flower pot is the difference. You've seen the basic burns, you've seen the stoves, the burners, the heat traps, but what's coming next is the section that actually messes with your head because it uses something covering every street in America right now, and nobody is talking about it. You might think wire is just structure, but actually it's the skeleton that turns any open fire into a real cooking system. Here's why. The steel wire rack, pulled from an old toaster oven, salvaged from a dishwasher, ripped out of a refrigerator shelf. Alone it's useless. Paired with 2 cinder blocks or a ring of bricks, it becomes a grill grate over an open fire. But here's the real trick. Bend that wire rack into a cylinder, line the inside with clay or mud. Let it dry. You've just made a crude tandoor oven. You can bake in it. You can smoke meat in it. You can heat rocks in it and use those rocks to cook. The wire is just structure. You're building a heat chamber around it. Ancient technology, zero cost. A wire rack is great for cooking. But what if you need to heat a space, not just a meal? That's a different problem, and it needs a completely different solution. The 5-gallon metal bucket. You find these everywhere. Construction sites, restaurants, agricultural supply. After a collapse, they're scattered like seeds. Cut a door at the base. 2 inches by 3 inches. Cut a 6-inch hole in the lid. You need a stovepipe, or vent out a window gap. That's a wood-burning barrel stove. It'll heat a small room. It'll hold a fire for hours. Load it with green wood in the back and dry wood up front. It teaches itself how to burn. Upgrade it with a metal shelf welded inside at midpoint. Now you have a firebox below and a warming chamber above. Now you can keep food hot without burning it. Now you have something close to a real stove, made from a bucket you found in a parking lot. You might think every stove here needs metal, but one of the most powerful fire tools on this list is something you'd never expect. Glass. The glass bottle. You can't make a stove out of it directly, but you can make a fire starter that needs no matches, no lighter, no spark line. The inside of a cardboard box with aluminum foil. Prop a water-filled glass jar in front as a lens. Angle it toward the sun. The focal point concentrates enough heat to ignite tinder, dry leaves, char cloth, cotton. That's your fire starting tool. Not a cooking surface, the focal point is millimeters wide, but it starts your fire without exposing your position or burning your supplies. In a situation where fuel is scarce, in a situation where making fire means exposing yourself, silence and sunlight are your best friends. The glass didn't make the stove, but it made the fire that made the stove possible. Let's talk about fabric. Rags. Torn clothing. You need a wick and the material matters. Only natural fibers. Cotton, jute, wool, synthetics or plastics, they melt into a toxic glob that clogs your fuel source and releases fumes into your breathing air. Natural fibers wick, synthetics fail. A piece of twisted cotton rag and a shallow metal lid, submerged in cooking oil. Vegetable oil, animal fat, that's a lamp, that's a heat source. That's the oldest technology in human history. One hard rule, never burn motor oil as a fuel source. Motor oil contains heavy metals and chemical additives that become carcinogenic when combusted. The fumes are acutely toxic. The smoke produces carbon monoxide. Cooking oil, olive oil, coconut oil, animal fat, those are your fuels. Motor oil is for machines, not for your lungs. A bundle of cotton rags wrapped around a steel rod, soaked in vegetable oil, mounted above a flat metal surface, not efficient, not long-lasting, but it puts out heat. It boils water, it keeps you alive. The dryer lint and cardboard egg carton. You know this one? Fill each egg cup with dryer lint, pour melted candle wax or paraffin over the top. Let it harden. 12 fire starters, free, zero effort. Each one burns 10 to 15 minutes. That's long enough to catch wet wood. That's long enough to start a fire in rain. That's the difference between fire and hypothermia. And you are throwing that lint in the garbage. Stop it. The empty sardine tin. Shallow. Metal. The perfect vessel. Pack it with cardboard strips stood upright. Fill it with melted wax. That's a survival candle that burns for hours. Scale it up with a tuna can. Scale it way up with a paint can. Same principle. Cotton wick and fuel in a metal container. Or skip the wax entirely. Use Crisco. Use bacon grease. Use coconut oil. Any solid fat becomes a candle with the right natural fiber wick. You have been staring at fuel and thinking it was food. In a survival scenario, it can be both, but it can definitely be fire. Here's the one that'll mess with your head. The car. Not the whole car, obviously, but you might think a wrecked car is useless scrap. Actually, it's a hardware store. Here's why. The wheel rim becomes a fire pit. Drop wood in it, set it on the ground, contained fire, zero cost. The exhaust pipe becomes a stovepipe. Run it through a wall gap to vent your barrel's stove. Already heat rated, already shaped right. The hood becomes a windbreak for your fire. Prop it at an angle. Your fire burns hotter, longer, more efficiently. One thing to skip, brake rotors and hubcaps. Rotors are soaked in brake fluid and road contamination. Most modern hubcaps are plastic or chrome-plated. Both produce toxic fumes and leach heavy metals when heated. Never cook on salvaged car parts. The contamination goes straight into your food. Use the frame. Use the sheet metal. Use the pipes. Avoid anything that touched brake fluid, coolant, or heavy metal coatings as a cooking surface. Every abandoned vehicle on every street after the collapse is a resource cache, a parts depot nobody is thinking about except you, because you watched this video, because you started looking at trash differently. Here's what all of this means. When civilization goes sideways, when the supply chain stops, when the shelves are empty and the grid is dark, the people who don't survive are not the ones without money. They're the ones who can't think like this. They walk past a dumpster and see garbage. You walk past a dumpster and see a stove, a water filter, a shelter component, a weapon. That mental shift is the whole game. That's the skill that actually keeps you alive. Not the gear you bought, not the freeze-dried food in your garage, the ability to look at nothing and build something. That's what your grandparents had. That's what got lost somewhere between fast food and DoorDash. That's what you're getting back. Every single video. If this changed how you see trash, the next video is the one you actually need. It shows you how to turn the same junk into a water filtration system that rivals a $300 kit. That one's right here. So, which one are you building first? Drop it in the comments. Tell me what trash is sitting in your garage right now, because you watching this might be exactly what someone else needs.